We've run many fundraisers in Edmonton before, and that has been a very big source of revenue. I want to thank actually the community of Lloydminster, the business people that donate silent auction and participate in helping us raise money for the fundraisers.
Is there any grant funding available through the government that you've explored?
We've, right now we haven't, when we were in Edmonton, for example, we got different funding for different programs. In Edmonton, for example, we got $75,000 to run a safety program for people who want to go in the oil and gas industry. That was a provincial grant. We always had the grant under the OST out of school program that we ran collaboratively.
Today, I'm still kind of wrapping my head around. So, so do you spend time in Edmonton as well as here? And maybe just I'm trying to.
Yeah. So we ran Christian Immigrant Support Services from 2009 to the end of 2017.
Okay.
So we are just very new here in Lloydminster.
Okay.
So we've closed the office in Edmonton, and we are completely fully situated here in Lloydminster.
Have you looked at, sorry if I could, just partnering with other, let's take educational institutions, because I'm thinking that, do any of the clients that you work with need, English skills upgrading or preparatory work, whatever, and post-secondary for jobs and the like? I'm just trying to see what some of those other pieces are in the plan that you have.
Yes, and we're still in the phase of need assessment.
Okay.
And also, we are also looking at who is already doing what, because we don't want to duplicate the services. So if Learning Council is already providing enough of the English learning, then we want to support that. But there's gaps that we have noticed from talking with us. The reply yet. I think they're still in the process.
Thank you. Then just to follow up, I'm just trying to sort out, how much supports are needed for children versus the adults, and how all those pieces look like. So I hear the homework club. So it's more the youth and less the adults, or?
Yeah. So the homework club will be more for children.
Yes.
Children and youth.
Okay.
The matching of Canadians and immigrants, that will be more for the adult. The conversation cafe, that will be more for adults. Yes, so we have some services that are typically for adults and services that are for children.
So Fonda, do you have a brochure that sort of all puts it all together?
Yes, we are still working on improving it.
I'm trying to put all these pieces together as you're speaking and going, okay, you do this, and I'm a visual person. I like to see it all kind of how it comes together. So that would be helpful for me to fully understand the organization.
Okay, yes. So we are working on the brochures. We have a media person who is really helping us with all the programs that will be for Lloyd Minister. Like I said again, we just started in February 6th here in Lloyd Minister, and so we are building ourselves as we go. But we need, again, your support really to be able to fully implement what we are planning to do.
So just with the title, the Christian Immigrant Support Services, does that limit the people that you are accepting into the organization for being able to help them?
On all our literatures, we make it very clear that the Christian part is just our way of doing things. It's our philosophy of service, but it has nothing to do with the service, to whom the service is delivered. So we serve non-Christian, we serve people who have no faith. For example, I can tell you that in Edmonton, we ran the oil and gas safety training, and we had probably about 20 or more than 20 nationalities that were served. We had people from India, from Nigeria, from China, from Pakistan, and different countries. So we are not serving just Christians, but we use Christian principles in our services.
And just to echo Councillor Diachuk's comments that a brochure would perhaps be beneficial to the rest of council, thank you very much for the invitation for joining you guys for your fundraiser evening. It was very informational and it was a lot of fun actually. There was immigrants from a vast array of countries, and it really helped me get a better understanding of what your organization does. So without the councillors actually having been there and experiencing that, I think having a visual to be able to actually see the amount of people that you are helping would be definitely very, very beneficial. So your organization is a community champion, obviously, in what you're doing to help immigrants within our cities. So just having that little bit more information, the presentation was wonderful, and thank you for being here today. But just the visualization is is very beneficial to those that weren't able to be there that evening. So I do recommend if you can put something together, if you have something, to maybe forward it on to City Hall so that everybody can have that opportunity to see.
I appreciate that.
So if I just pulled up, so the Edmonton Immigrant Services Association, is that what you did? It's called Edmonton Immigrant Association?
No.
Okay.
No, it's...
Because I know it says Christian Immigration Society?
Christian Immigrant Support Services.
Okay.
Yeah.
No more questions? Thank you very much, Charles, for your presentation, and thank you for the information. We give a lot to council, and we hope to hear more from you as council's requested. If you get a brochure, that would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. City Clerk.
If I could ask for council's indulgence, we've got a hold of Councilor Fagin, and we're going to have him join us on the telephone.
Thank you.
He's not going to look at you.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Counselor, how are you?
So,
Pretty good. We're going to patch you in here.
excellent. Thank you.
All right. Welcome, Councillor Fagin. We're just about to invite the RCMP up to present their annual performance plan. Inspector Pearson will be joining us in 1 second. You can hear us okay?
Yeah, just turning up my volume here. And firstly, I'm a little difficulty there. See how that, could you please that?
Okay.
Get that portion, please?
Yes, we're just inviting RCMP Inspector Neil Pearson up, and we're going to have the RCMP annual performance report. Can you hear that?
I did do that. Excellent.
Okay, excellent. So Councillor, just so you know, as questions go around the table here, I will come to you at the end to ask any questions that you may have.
Very good, thank you.
All right. Inspector, welcome.
Thank you. Should see everybody. And just before we start, I want to thank Glenn Alford for the wonderful presentation he made for me. Mine was like a stick man compared to this one, so it was really good. I really appreciate it. And I also have Sergeant Nelson in the audience as backup, and she's the one that actually administers the APP for the year, so that'll be out soon. So the annual performance plan is a electronic planning and performance management system used by the RCMP at detachments and unit levels. And the system allows the RCMP to tailor its services to contract partners' priorities, often for specific areas such as crime reduction, community policing, and integrated policing. So what it does is it allows us to use is that we pick a topic, we study it through the year, and then we see how we did, and how we can improve sort of the basics. You got to remember that the APP, or the annual performance plan, doesn't. So if we identify theft of vehicles, it doesn't mean we don't investigate break-and-enters or other crimes. It's just a gauge that we use. So to help us determine the APP, we had a survey conducted with the help of the City of Lloyd, and we had 302 responses, which gave us some feedback into the priorities for the APP this year. And we used those priorities and reported that back at the end of March to see how well we did. I guess I should just, here's my technology that there's. So from the survey, we had 4 areas that we identified to be part of our annual performance plan, just from the survey. So that's property crime, drug trafficking, traffic enforcement, and police visibility. The last 2, the crime reduction and the employee wellness, has been added by our commanding officer out of K Division, and that's something that we'll be doing more on an internal basis. Crime reduction, of course, we do that already here. We have a unit in Lloydminster. And employee wellness is something we're working, obviously, to make sure my detachment people are doing okay and dealing with any issues. On the right side, you'll see the results from last year from the 4 priorities that I identified. Unfortunately, the theft from vehicles went up 5%, which is not what we intended, but property crime is something that's something that kind of ebb and flow. Drug trafficking, we did drop by 10%. Our police visibility was really increased. We had the bike patrols this summer. We had the increased foot patrols. We're going to continue that program again this year. That was really well received. Constable Kirsten was the one out there on the bike and with other people interacting. And our biggest jump came in traffic enforcement, as you can tell, went up by 82%. Because I've got a dedicated traffic unit now, and that's paid off some dividends, especially in the visibility aspect. So out of the responses from the survey, these are the what people thought the main focus of the RCMP should be here in Lloyd. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. And again, out of the survey, people were asked to rank the following from the most important to the least. So police visibility, crime reduction strategies, timely processes of investigations, and educate the public about crime. So we work on the visibility through patrols, and that's through our traffic and our members on the watch. Also, we're tying in with their community police officers, which we've integrated them into the office this year. So we work closely with them, and they work with us. And crime reduction strategies, again, that comes from the local detachment, as well as anything from K Division. Obviously, this year, our commanding officer has dedicated his crime reduction as a priority. And that was there was an announcement a couple of weeks ago, some funding from the province, so we're tied in with that. And timely processing investigations, something I always strive to work with my supervisors and my members, just about quality investigations and getting back to our clients. And as again, we educating public, we always have our media and such. So again, identified in the survey, the criminal activities facing avoid, property thefts, break and enters, sale of illegal drugs, that's illegal drugs, I guess in July might be changed, and driving infractions. So we're, I think, pretty well on track with that. Property thefts, again, are just something that's, it just ebbs and flows. And it's just often crime of opportunity. But we're working on that, and we're having some good successes. So again, from the survey, how people generally health and safety feel in Lloydminster, fairly good, I think, with about 75% or 80% feeling pretty safe here. Lloydminster does have its influences from outside that come in here. It's a major center. You draw from other communities from east and west, and sometimes the cities are like the moths to the flame, right? So they come in here. So we do get some outside influences that sometimes causes some interesting activities, but we deal with that accordingly. Just from our stats from the Key Division, this is our based on the PROS, which is the police reporting and occurrence system, which is our reporting system. So as you can tell, we've had an 18.7 increase in calls for service from 2016 to 2017. So just an indication of how busy the detachment is. Again, from our stats from K Division, 10 top file types by workload. You'll notice that disturbing the peace is the top. That generally covers everything from most of it's alcohol fueled or problems at the bars or houses when somebody removes. So that's generally where that comes in. Again, impaired operation, we get lots of those calls. Unfortunately, we still get lots of those calls. Mischief, assault, and it goes down.
So if I can just ask one question, because you're showing the prior slide, you said we're now 18.2% or whatever, 7%, I can't remember the exact number. Which one of these areas then has gone up the most from prior year? Because I'm looking at those and saying, okay, that should add up to 100% or whatever, I guess, in terms of total, or of the top 10 anyways.
Oh yeah.
So which of those has gained the most in terms of its presence in our community? The disturbing the peace, or am I looking at those top 10 areas here?
Well, I think just off my head that the disturbing the peace, so when it comes in, we dispatch it as a call for that. It could be something else, but usually it's dispatch. So that's the disturbance calls are the ones that we go to quite a bit. So we filter them out. So it could come in as a disturbing piece, and then it turns into a domestic, or it turns into something else. Right? So
would it be possible for us to get a comparison from the prior year on from the graph from last year to this year? We just need to have that comparison. And
yeah,
see.
I get I don't have them ready.
Yeah, no, I understand. But that would be good to do a year-by-year comparison, I guess. So, part of it is even a 3-year, 5-year glimpse to look at it and say, where are we at on this? Where's the trend line? Because I think over the years we've seen that certainly, drug use and affiliated crimes that go with it has been one of the big drivers in our community. And so when we see a decrease in that area, that's good news. It would be important to highlight on that trend line, right?
There's a bit of a word of caution when it comes to doing files of that nature, because you never know. These are usually crimes of emotion and passion. Okay. So a lot of it could be, if you have a slow year, it could be a simple thing as -40 in January could have an effect on calls for service. So it's, I can provide them to council for sure, but just be careful that some of them are.
I guess just when I look at this one, I don't see anything related to substance use.
Well,
so with those top files, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if I looked, years ago, we heard that was kind of one of the dominant areas of
So, sorry, substance abuse?
yeah, related to drug use and.
Okay. Well, I can fairly say certain that the disturbing piece is pretty well alcohol fuel or drug fuel.
Okay.
So that's pretty accurate.
So it might be buried in there, things too. Okay.
It's kind of a catch-all, right? So
Yep.
I recognize that, and like for example, on the weekend, my members go into the bars or whatever. That's what it's going to be, right? So unfortunately, drug and alcohol use is not going anywhere. So that's the majority of our calls, and that's where people end up in our house.
If you want to hold questions, I just was thinking about that. This way we'll just let, there's one more slide that the inspector has, and then we'll go to.
Again, that's the top 10 by file count, so it's good to say things. I think that's good.
Councilor Buckingham, and then we'll get Councilor Baker and Councilor Moore.
Thank you, Worship. I have the pleasure of working alongside some of the members of our attachment from time to time for good reasons. Not something like think. 2,250 more calls from the year previous. What I'm interested in finding out about that is staffing levels compared to 16 to 17. How did we handle 2,250 more calls? Did we actually have more boots on the ground in 17 than 16? And I realize there's some extenuating factors there with transfers and everything else, but 2,250 more calls is substantial.
It is, and we're quite fortunate here that we have very good members here that handle the workload very well. We were down a little bit for a little bit of most of the year. Now we're up to about 44 or 49. So all I can say is that the members who are stationed here in Whiteminster do a phenomenal job, and they do me proud by the work they do. I don't get people complaining that they're going out to call. They go up and they serve the citizens of Whiteminster. I'm extremely proud of them and the work they do. I reflect on my days years ago when I was out there running around, chasing bad guys, and they do a great job. And there's a lot of pride in what they do, and there's a lot of pride when we catch some of these prolific offenders and these gang members and that sort of thing. So I think I'm doing my best to get the members, get our staffing up to where it should be. But based on that, we're very supportive of their activities.
Based on your knowledge of things, and as people want to progress in their careers and so on and so forth, is Lloydminster viewed as a destination for members, whether they're coming out of depot, whether they're coming as a transfer, as a promotion? How are we viewed as a city, as a place to go?
Well, I think it's I made a comment today, it's a good place to come because you get lots of experience here. Now that's sort of the downside to it. You get you have to go to places that have, I won't say action, but that give you challenges and give you opportunities to grow and to develop your skills. We've been, with the status of the force, we've had lots of members come out of depot here. We've had lots of cadets, which gives my members time to train them, and that gives them that supervision component. But I can honestly say we have had excellent cadets come out of depot. The members that we get are top-notch, and in fact, I saw a couple of them, and I didn't realize that 6 months was up already, but that's how fast they go. So they're busy, they're engaged. It's a good place to come. We've had some promotions into here. People are actively want to come here, promote here, so I think it's a good place to come.
Councilor Baker.
Thank you, Roger. Inspector Neal, the bylaw officer system, when they can stop moving traffic. I'm not sure I have it straight in my mind, but it's just happened in the last year or so. I believe when they can stop moving traffic if need be.
Yes.
How is that working for you? Is it working good?
Well, I don't think I can really, we work closely with the CPOs in our office, but actually, Glenn Alford probably the one who can answer that question. I don't control the actions of the CPOs. We just work in conjunction, so they support us, we support them. So I know they have certain authorities, but I'm not the expert on that, so I'll defer to that if that's okay.
But it helps, for sure.
It is a help, I hope.
Oh,
from that
It's
perspective?
it's been wonderful. It's nice for the citizens to be able to come to the office and have one-stop shopping sort of thing. The CPOs help us out on accident scenes. They're restricted by what they can do, what they can't do. So
Yeah.
we don't dictate what they can, but they definitely work with my traffic unit and do certain things. So we're working together. There's a lot more visibility out there. When the call comes to the front, before the call came to the front counter, and it was specifically a bylaw, we had no means of dealing with it. Now they're in the office and the support staff is there, so it's really been helpful, especially the front counter bit.
Looking from the outside, moving them, the boys in with, and the girls in with, more closer to your force, the police, they can get more integrated and learn a lot more. I thought that was a smart move to do that. The other thing, one of those charts, sexual assault. We know that none of it's acceptable, but it's out there, and is that getting worse or less, or like I don't know the stat from.
I think it's one of those stats that
You probably don't have them either.
you can't really. It's a crime that it could be historical sexual assault. It could be something that unfortunately happens. It's just it's an act of violence, right? So it's just more of a category. But I think maybe there might be more reporting because people are aware of it, but it's not tolerated, and it's a hard one to really answer appropriately. It's what people feel, and because don't forget in the criminal code it's very broad, right? What the levels are. So, but we also support. We have a good hospital here that supports us with those investigations. We've had some very good success that way. So,
Scary and serious. Last but not least, based on Councillor Buckingham's statement, you came back.
I came back, yeah. I came back after, I was here in 95, I came back in 2015.
And we're glad you did.
Actually, and Sarah did as well, and we just had another corporal, Donazer. He's come back, he got promoted back here, he just started last week. So he came back too, so there must be some draw here. And we also have we've also worked a lot closer, I forgot to mention, with the F division now. So we were doing a lot more work with their detachments on the eastern side, especially with our crime and prolific offenders. So a lot more communication with them.
Thank you, Councilor Monroe. Oh, good, Councilor.
So with 82% of the residents feeling safe, obviously a huge thank you to you and all the members and the families of the members that sacrifice on a daily basis, but 18.7% increase in calls from 2013 to 2017. This is sort of echoing on Councillor Buckingham's comment, but he was just referencing 2016 to 2017. So with 18.7% increase, has our member load increased by that same amount from 2013 to 2017?
Well, no, because a lot of it could be, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but some of those numbers could be self-generated files, like impaired driving, so that would be dealt with. So, or self-generated calls. So when you, as a commander, you want lots of self-generated calls, like self-created, because that means that members are out there checking traffic, they're going to, like, digging up the soil.
They're doing their job, right.
And that's where you find things, right? So that's where a lot of it comes from. So we do have, regards to the what I'm looking for is, we have lots of support from the detachment. We have great support from the municipal employees. So a lot of the systems we've done, we moved on to our support. So the members are actually out and about doing things, and the paperwork aspect is being done by the support provided by the city. So for example, our court now is all done digitally, so we don't have to photocopy anymore. So these type of improvements in the system, right?
So a lot of those calls are actually generated from members themselves, not necessarily from outsiders within the community.
Well, it's a mixture of calls, but some of that is self-generated. But those people we're getting may be coming from other communities, right?
Right.
So,
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilor Schwartz.
Thank you, Your Worship. My main question was just what are kind of your expectations for things like traffic enforcement this year? Because to me, I was somewhat surprised that it went up 82% on the RCMP side. On the RCMP side, when the city started doing some more traffic enforcement type of things with the changing training and stuff, so I was surprised that the percentage went up. So would you expect that that would actually go down in the current year as the city of Lloyd picks up some of that load?
No, I think it will continue. I have a very good traffic member who's very enthusiastic about that, so I would expect that that will continue. And probably he's also liaising with F Division, bringing the traffic units in from their resources, as well as also liaise with K Division, the traffic unit at Vermilion. So we're getting a lot more presence. So Constable Fickner is actually coordinating with both F and K to get in here to help out. I don't really see a decline in that. I think it'll probably be pretty steady. You can't go wrong with traffic enforcement. It's just the visibility. It's not. I'm not going to say that everybody loves a traffic ticket, but it's important that you're out there, and especially in the school zones and that sort of thing, the high traffic areas.
And I also had one other comment. I'm kind of maybe of a different opinion in this way. Higher crime is always a bad thing, but sometimes it needs better reporting or identifying where more crime's happening. So it's not always necessarily a bad thing when you see that there's more reported crimes in a year than there was the prior year, because that means that you potentially laid more charges and dealt with more issues that year. So I would just want to say, great job, everyone involved. I think it looks, as much as it's a bad thing to have more crime, it's great that that you're getting out there and getting people who are committing crimes.
No, I think, and I agree that the quality of our data going in is really important, because without that, it doesn't reflect on our what we're doing, right? So if you don't have that accurate data, you don't get that reflection. And there are bad people out there, and we're getting those.
All right, move over to Councillor Thatcher.
Yeah, thank you. I want to echo again, certainly one of the things that in the circle of people that I play and work with, again, the confidence in the RCMP is really high, and I think it would be representative, I guess, of that high level of confidence in here. The one thing I do hear, I heard a lot about in the last week, has been parking and handicap zone, so maybe that's our peace officers that can take care of that. But the other part that I've heard a lot about, and I witnessed people almost getting hurt, drivers are texting and totally distracted. So where are we at with that? And does that show up in our, I think, in that category? Which category does it show up, and what are we seeing in our city?
I can get those stats. We actually keep stats of that.
Okay.
That actually is one of Constable Fickner's pet peeves, is the texting and driving. And it's actually, they just found out now this actually causes more deaths than impaired driving. So the distracted driving is a big component of his enforcement. So that's definitely on our radar. So I can get those stats if you want. In trouble, what we do is we usually, our stats are put in such that we put moving traffic, non-moving traffic, that sort of thing, and texting is, but we can certainly look at getting smart numbers.
And I just see it, and you just cringe when you're seeing some of these things happening, and I can't understand why.
And it's, I can't explain either, but people don't understand the ramifications, right, of the texting. It must be important,
I guess it might be. Councillor Bagley, did you have any questions for the inspector?
Yeah, I think the questions have already been answered there on the relationship with officers and bond officers and how we'll proceed when we're looking for new members. Those are my two main ones. And I just want to thank Inspector Pearson and his number for the job well done.
Inspector, I think, go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Worship. So as a city, we're dealing with it. We've had open houses about it. We've talked about all kinds of things regarding it. I think this is probably an opportunity to ask how your members are feeling and how they may be pre-preparing for cannabis legalization while we haven't heard anything.
Well,
sorry.
No, that's fine. In a couple months, we'll just go outside and let the big doobie make.
Not on the property.
No, that's right. I think what the stance that we're taking in the RCMP is we're waiting for the legislation to come through. And whatever the laws are, we will enforce them as they see fit by the federal government. So that's our stance from our commanding officer too, is that until we're told what we're going to enforce. To me, legalization is similar to alcohol, and we should treat it as such. So if you're impaired by a drug and you're driving, you get charged with the code. It's the same. So that's how we sort of see it. Once it's legal, it's legal to have, right? But it's like alcohol. I think it has to be treated with respect. And as far as my members, how they feel, I'd probably safely say that it's when it happens, and we'll deal with it, right? So there are some things that obviously we're going to be doing some more training with the field sobriety testing, that sort of thing. I have no information on a roadside, sort of like the roadside device yet. I know there are instruments out there that can record drugs, but won't tell you how much. And there's lots of questions, and I can always guarantee that the first person charged when this comes legal and goes to court, it's going to be challenged. So that's what they're expecting. So. But we will treat it as it comes up.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Just my biggest concern about it is the impairment and the driving as well.
Well, that's obviously one of it, and that's why we're doing the standard field sobriety testing. So the members are being trained in the old walk the line sort of thing. Personally, one of my concerns is the edibles and some of the effect on the youth. That I don't think really has been dealt with, but that's just a personal opinion. It is, that's what we're doing.
We wish you good luck.
Thank you. I don't know when it's going to be next.
I've just got a few comments, if I may, to close, unless anyone else has any. Certainly.
Thank you. I was just curious on whether or not we're going to get another presentation as we get closer to kind of outlining the costs and everything that come with it. I've seen one, the city of Regina had the Regina Police, and then the city of Saskatoon and the Saskatoon Police come out and at least outlay what the additional costs are going to be related to when marijuana is legal.
I think a lot of the costs are going to come from exactly that. It's the training. It's the training that we need to identify the impaired driving. We're also looking at possibly increasing to a school resource officer. That position too is being more of an education for youth. So as far as enforcement goes, I've said before, enforcement of illegal substance really isn't enforcement, but it's the driving, and I agree. So that's where most of our training has come through. But we have a budget for that, and we will incorporate that in there. So.
I just wanted to add a thank you as well on behalf of the entire city to the RCMP for the job they continue to do day in and day out every evening. And please carry that back to the detachment members, Inspector. It's great to see crime reduction. The CEO met with this council last fall in Calgary during our convention, and we were able to have 20 minutes with him. We appreciated it very much, and we convey that back to him as well in the conversations. I think that the work that's being done from his perspective for the entire province in crime reduction, working with the neighboring F division, because we are in that spot where we're in between places, and we have seen our fair share. And you hit the traffic. I thought it was kind of nifty to see this past summer the combined efforts of F and K division. I think the motorcycles were a great addition to our city, and they were a very busy lot, as I could see out in my city hall office. So I appreciate that. And I think that, as you mentioned, texting and driving continues. The message is out there, but it's just like driving under the influence. It hasn't quite reached its final saturation point. So keep up the great work.
Thank you. Just want to echo again the great support the city, council, and the support, and the citizens here gave my detachment. It's really appreciated, because like I said before, we're in a business that doesn't get many kudos, and so we really appreciate your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Inspector. Moving on to agenda item number 5.2. I'll look to the city manager for landscaping in the Parkview Estates.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll ask Adam from engineering to come over.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Your Worship, good afternoon. I want to present to you the landscaping project that we'll be embarking on this year.
So, sorry if I could just interrupt. Councillor Fagnan. Councillor Fagnan?
Hello there.
Can I ask you to mute your phone until you speak? We're getting a little bit of background coming back through the speaker.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Sorry, Councilor Baker.
Your Worship, are we going to have a map of this? I know we got some little line maps. Or do you have a big map we can put on the wall? Or do we need that up there?
The map's coming up. It'll be coming up shortly in the presentation.
It's better than this one, isn't it?
The one that, I don't know if we've got one much better than that's in the presentation. Yeah, it wasn't colored, so it was a little hard to read, but that's okay from that perspective. Unless yours was, that ours didn't come through as colored, so.
Sorry.
Okay. Please continue. Sorry about the interruption.
So we are planning to do a landscaping project in Parkview and Colonial Park East. So a little background about the project. As we all know, Parkview and Colonial are the neighborhood developed by the city land divisions. So developing the park spaces is part of this subdivision process, and that's why we are going on with this project. The objective of this project is to construct some asphalt trail, plant some trees, and put in some bollards, traffic gates around the park space. So this project will make sure that we create an avenue for the citizen to meet. Then we want to provide the means of transportation for the citizen, and we also want to enhance the curb appeal in this neighborhood. So as the project will make sure, it will make sure that we can sell the land. It's like an advertisement for the land. So the budget, $903,000 was approved for this project in the 2018 capital project. So the environmental implication of this project is that one of the environmental implications is that we are going to plant grass and trees. This will make sure that we grow green space. This will reduce pollution, and it will also reduce stormwater runoff in the area. So we are going to minimize flooding. I just want to brief you about this project. So this is Parkview. Oh, it's not. So the black line represents the asphalt trail. It's a 3-meter wide trail that we plan to install in this Parkview Municipal Reserve. Then you see areas to be landscaped. We are going to plant grass and trees, shrubs in the other areas. So yeah, that's pretty much.
Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I am familiar with which area this one is in. My general question is, we're doing landscaping to help with sales and things like this, and this may actually be a question more for Rodney, but what are we going to do with the undeveloped lots in the meantime? Sorry, no, Executive Manager Rodney Kelly, should be a little more formal. What are we going to do with the undeveloped lots to make sure that the weeds aren't just moving over from there into this newly landscaped area?
Part of the approved budget of $903,000, we allocated some amount for weed clearing, snow removal. So it's something we'll be taking care of this year. So we'll be removing grasses, and we'll also be communicating with the people that have bought the lot so that they can remove ours, the unoccupied and
Councillor.
Your Worship.
Oh, sorry.
I may be able to add more context to that. When we developed our 2018 capital budget, we allocated, I believe, $908,000 towards land division landscaping. That includes the tender that's currently out to do our large topsoil and grass and seeding in our trails. On top of that, we're going to be looking at cleaning up some of our vacant lots that have weeds on, so we're going to be contracting a weed company to come in and help us establish that, or work with our parks team to help us. We haven't established that quite yet, but we do have money allocated, whether it's additional resources through the city or contract services for that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was just going to make 2 points. One is that, you know, from the perspective of selling lots in that area, I think it looks a lot more like a construction area than it would normally if, you know, the houses in that area would do their landscaping, but it's hard to rationalize doing your landscaping if, you know, you've got weeds next door that are going to be crossing over. So, you know, it could really help from a lot sales perspective, because the people who have purchased and built and are living there will probably finish things themselves more. My other question was just around on the west side of this trail here, how many of those are they all still available, or have any of them been sold, or are they all owned by the city?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Most of them are still available for sale. Just in regards to the current area in Parkview, what we call Parkview Phase 6, Stage 1, there's all those lots have been sold other than one that's owned by the city that we're currently selling, are owned by private individuals. It is the Land Division's intent to clean up our own backyard before we can ask other people to clean up their backyard. So we're going to lead by example and make sure our lots are free and clear of any garbage and weeds. We will be working with the owners of the current properties to clean up those as we clean up our area as well.
Councilor Baker.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess that was my question. If we have a proper subdivision map up there, I drove by there trying to figure out where we're going, and I couldn't read those maps very good. If you have a look at them. And I don't know how many houses we have on those lots, and how many aren't built on. But I guess up front I have some reservations. It costs a lot of money to landscape, and yeah, this doesn't tell me what's built on. There's a lot of empty lots. And I can guarantee you, whatever landscaping you do to that lot, it'll be gone when they start building the houses. The lots are postage size stamps, and you know, they just use the whole lot. The berms at the back, the boulevards are gone. I just know from experience, because I lived in that world for a long time. So I'm not just sure if it makes a lot of sense. And how much are we going to lose, and how much are we going to redo? Marketing, everybody that's going to buy a lot, contractors or whatever, they understand if you landscape ahead of time, they're going to have to pay twice to have it redone. And they know they pay for it somewhere. So I just question, not the thought of, I know you want to make it look good, but is it the right thing to do? I don't know. Because I don't know how many empty lots there is in there. I have no idea how many empty lots.
Before Don makes some comment, the MR, the park space is part of the subdivision itself, so it's necessary. We already have.
There's probably some areas you can do. I'm not arguing that.
Yeah.
But I don't really know the extent of this $900,000 or whatever it is.
The 900,000 is also meant for. It's not just the landscaping, but it includes other projects that we'll be doing. So I think Don has something to add. I have to get it's
So is this the parcel just north of Keybaugh's Lake there? Or? I was wondering where 75th Avenue was there, and I heard that some north was true up on top there, and the numbers are so small, I have no clue where it was. I can't read them at the moment, actually.
They're not clear.
I can't hear, but I can still see.
Just west of Holy Rosary.
Yeah, and south.
Just west. Straight west
Just
of Holy
west.
Rosary, yeah.
Yeah, because that property then also goes all the way south to Keybaugh's. That's all open, that whole area.
Yeah. Undeveloped.
So, sorry for the confusion. So this is our piece of equipment. So part P6, phase 6 stage 1 is in this area. Phase 6 stage 2 is here. Currently we have probably 90% of lots that are vacant and are currently waiting to be sold. There is a fence established along the back of those property lines that will restrict builders from putting materials into the park space, which connects through a trail at this point and comes down, will eventually connect to a future school site in this area and comes along the back of these lots. We also have a roundabout in this area that is currently unfinished, and we need to come in and do that. So the majority of the work that's happening relating to the project that's currently out for tender is topsoil, grass, shrubs, trees, and trails in this area to connect the existing 2 subdivisions together. Future development of houses won't impact that landscaping, as it's future park fenced off, zero access to the builders to connect to. There's also some work we want to do along the boulevards coming in, understanding that there is some work there to be done and to beautify the area. Outside that, Land Division has an obligation to all the individuals that purchase lots in these areas that the city was going to finish the landscaping. It's been well over 4 years, I believe, of undeveloped landscaping in this area, so we feel it's important that we initiate that today. And aside from that, I believe there is some work in Colonial. I don't have the map in front of me, but there is some work over in Colonial phase 2 that will also be landscaped. We have a roundabout in that area, as well as some boulevards that would have minimal impact on future construction. So I hope
in the developed area, the zone that you call developed with all these maps, I don't know how many lots is there? 100 or 150?
Well, sorry, can you repeat your question?
These maps that you gave us here, how many houses or how many lots is there altogether? Or if you get it all per head, it doesn't matter.
Well, there's about 75 lots in this area. In Parkview 6-2, there was 105 lots in Parkview 6-1. The 105 are all sold.
Where are the boundaries of development? That's what
The boundaries of the landscaping is between these 2 areas right here. So that green space in between the 2 developments.
And that's $900,000?
Well, we haven't got the tender back yet, but the tender would include landscaping, shrubbery, and trails in those areas, as well as the roundabouts in both Colonial and Park.
Roundabout, I understand. You could do part of it, but the area around through the lots and down the back alleys or down the pathways and that, how many of those houses are actually built?
Maybe 50% on this side. But those houses don't have any impact on the park.
No,
So there's fences installed along the property line. So builders are required to build and lay material within their own development. They can't put that material into the park space for storage and have the city clean that up later. So it would have zero impact on the lot, from my opinion.
Usually put the shingles on before you lay the floor covering in. That's the way I look at it. You know, whatever you think's best is, but to me, a lot of that landscaping but I'm looking at an open field almost when I was looking at it. You know, I don't know the whole plan, but I know there's stuff in here, but I just wondered if it made sense to be doing it ahead of time, and we may not sell those lots for 3 years, you know what I mean? But I guess you think it's the right thing to do?
As a developer, I think it's the right thing to do, and I think we owe it to the purchasers that bought lots in this area that we continue to finish our developments as required. And I think I'd have to get planning's perspective on it, but there should be landscaping done in a certain period of time, which we're pushing the boundary on that 6-1 phase. But again, we'll provide more information to council when we bring it for consideration, and hopefully we can.
I don't need any specific, Tom, and it just doesn't make sense to me logically what we're doing. That's why I bring it up. So.
Am I confused?
Hang on.
No, I was going to say, at 6-1, I think Executive Director Don there is the one on the left, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, I think that one, all those houses along the backside are done. So if I have a lot and I'm going to try to put a lawn in, and next to me is 4 feet of weeds, I get it. You know, I'd be concerned. I know the other side, 6-2 though, there's some properties going in that are on the Holy Rosary site, you know, facing the city, but I don't think, you know, on the left-hand side, there's much for development on that side. But, you know, and I've heard people say, why should I develop my backyard if I have 5 feet of weeds behind me? It's kind of a losing battle.
I think there's still a few houses that need to go in 6-1, but they're mostly.
Yeah, and there's a couple closer to the road certainly that are, and again, they have weeds.
We did a similar program in Colonial East 1 where there was drainage channel and dry pond essentially that was landscaped out prior to house construction, and like I indicated with the fencing existing, it contains the construction to the lots that are purchased by the builder or the individual building house.
Councillor Thompson.
No, I just want to say on the west side of the landscaping area there, I want to say there is 11 of those lots that are not yet developed or are in the process of being developed. So I would say that more than 50% for sure.
Yeah.
When I talked about 50%, I was including all the lots on that boundary, so I believe we have 0 lots developed on the site.
Yeah, that's fair. Thanks.
Any other councillor?
Your Worship, I was looking at this and I want to make sure that I understand where you're coming from on this and where you're coming from on this. I think what we're talking about here is not things that are going to have to be ripped up to build a new house. I think, unless I'm missing something, there seems to be a bit of a disconnect there. This is finishing work on something that we promised to have done previously that we have not. And when we do this, if we do this, then it's not going to be ripped up again. This is going to be permanent. Because I think you're saying that this may have to come out and be ripped apart to put all the development in, right?
Not all of it.
Some of it.
I don't know the spot because I couldn't find out where I was at with this map I had. What I'm saying is, when you have unfinished lots, just raw lots, and you landscape behind and in front, that's going to get wrecked.
But is that where, that's not exactly what we're doing there.
We're not doing any landscaping in a boulevard in front of a house that doesn't have development on it. Where we're landscaping is in the back of lots between the 2 developments, along the roadways and in our roundabout areas. So in my opinion, there would be very little to none that would be damaged through the development of houses.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to clear up, is that listening to all that, I was getting confused, saying, are we doing this or are we doing this? What we're doing is developing stuff. It's not going to be ripped out again.
That is an intent. We can make sure that when our plans are coming forward for final approval, that there is none of those that would be impacted. But my understanding is that there would be little to none that would be.
And we're behind in doing it.
Exactly.
Thank you.
I'll ask administration for some colored photos next time, just so that for clarity's sake as well as the map, I appreciate what's presented. The black and white after it gets photocopied or scanned in, it seems that it loses some of its appeal very quickly. So I'd certainly like to see it brought back before council with that more information so that we can clearly have a chance to, as Council Baker alluded to, I have an idea of where it is in Parkview, and I'd certainly like to go over to Colonial as well and see that firsthand, because I think that from a taxpayer's perspective, we have made obligations because we are a developer. We need to remember that we are developers and we have made promises to our customers. And if we haven't fulfilled those promises, we do have that obligation. But on the other side, the taxpayers that are paying for this want to ensure we do it once, we do it right, and we do it properly, and ensure that that money is well spent. So I think with that information in hand, we'll be able to help move that forward.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. But when we bring it back, I can assure you that we'll have better maps explaining the exact context of what we're trying to do. And just from a budget note, the funding to pay for this landscaping is contributed from lot sales in 2018, so development paying for development.
Great. Any other questions for Dawn or Anna? Thank you very much. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry, Glenn. My apologies. Councillor Fagnan.
No problem. No, the sound quality over the phone is not great. I've been listening more on the live stream, and there's about 15-second delay there. So, but if we're waiting for more information, that's great.
All right, we'll be expecting some more information from administration. Adam, thank you very much.
Just before I go, the MR, to assure you, so we make sure that the trees are planted away from the property line. So there's no, it will not, they won't be removing it when they are doing construction in the future. So we ensure that in the design.
One of my biggest problems, I didn't know where I was at. This was the first time in my life.
Thank you very much, Adam. All right, moving on to agenda 5.3, City Manager.
I'll ask Karen from Operations to come forward.
Good afternoon, Karen.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Council. Sorry. So today I'll be talking about the desludging of the wastewater treatment facility lagoons and the aeration pipes. So in an effort to improve effluent quality, the city has allocated $3 million to desludge the wastewater treatment facility lagoons. The desludging will require an additional cost for the removal and reinstallation or replacement of the current aeration diffusers. The city has been mandated by the federal and provincial governments to comply to the wastewater systems effluent regulations. In an effort to improve effluent quality, the city has allocated $3 million to desludge the lagoons. Desludging is expected to optimize the current facility's performance by maximizing its treatment capacity. The lagoons have not been desludged since the 1990s. Based on consultation with regulators, it was determined that the best option was to remove the sludge from the lagoons and land apply in Alberta for beneficial use. Saskatchewan land application was looked into, but due to additional stabilization step required to meet regulatory requirements, the Saskatchewan option was eliminated. The city issued a request for proposal from qualified contractors for the land application of municipal wastewater sludge on February 6 of 2018. The RFP was written in with the intention of focusing on expected outcome rather than a prescribed method to ensure that the city is getting the best possible options from the industry. Scope of work included coordination with Nexum, the city's current provider for aeration diffusers, regarding the removal and installation of the diffusers if needed. Nexum notified the city that there will be significant costs associated with removal and reinstallation of the diffusers in Cell 1 due to the amount of rags, plastics, and other debris accumulated in the diffusers. An addendum was issued to the proponents to exclude the removal and reinstallation of the aeration equipment in their proposals. Evaluation of the proposals and administration's recommendation will be presented to Council on April 30th of 2018. Administration will be issuing a procurement document for the removal and reinstallation or replacement of the aeration diffusers. The successful proponent will work with the desludging contractor to complete the desludging project in a timely and efficient manner. It is anticipated that the approved budget will be sufficient to cover the cost of desludging in the removal and reinstallation or replacement of the aeration diffusers. For options, that the committee accept this report as information.
Thank you, Karen. Any questions or comments? Councilor Torres.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this one sounds like just general, here's a heads up for bad news type of thing. The way I read this is because, yeah, we were already going to do the desludging and that was going to cost approximately $3 million, but what we're hearing is there's going to be extra costs that need to be thrown at this overall project because we have to take the diffusers off, possibly replace some of them. And that's a cost we didn't factor into our initial $3 million.
That was thank you, Councilor Thornton. That was a cost that was already factored into that initial budget estimate.
Okay.
And it was originally intended that that the contractor, the winning contractor for the desludging, is going to look after that as a whole package. But when we got the numbers back from our current provider, we noticed that the costs were significantly more than what we anticipated. So we would rather us handle the whole that piece of the project rather than have the desludging contractor handle that piece of the project.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I misunderstood that when I read it. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Baker.
Just a question. Certainly you gotta do the aerators when you're. I guess in my own mind that was part of the job just because it was. But in any case, is this waste coming through a screening system through the sewage treatment plant, or is it airborne? Airborne debris from the landfill.
There is some sort of, thank you, Councilor Baker, there is some that is coming from the landfill. And there are also some debris that just comes through the process. We installed the bar screens.
Yeah, we installed bar screens back in 2010, the most current ones. Prior to that, our bar screens didn't have the efficiency to get more of the finer solids. So prior to 2010, way back to the 1980s, our removal equipment wasn't as good as it is now. So yeah, we have buildup basically from landfill and from what has come basically through the wastewater stream.
So it's a combination of problems.
Yes.
The airborne stuff's a little hard to deal with.
Yeah.
In terms of those screens, they're called screening out of the solids, you'd be putting in a different product this time around.
With hopefully, yes, the new wastewater treatment plant facility.
There's too much stuff getting through
Yeah.
there. I'm sounding.
Yeah.
Just curious on that one.
Sure.
Thanks. Thank you.
And just to add on, I guess, to Councillor Torrenson's question, when we originally, I guess, had developed the whole RFP, we knew that there are some contractors that will be able to desludge the lagoons without having to remove the aeration diffusers. So we wanted to make sure that we have an open RFP to be able to account for that too.
Councilor.
Thank you. So are we going to be sole sourcing then with this Nexum company on the diffuser side of things, but we're going to go out for an addendum on just the desludging portion? That could be really any company with a pumper truck that kind of has a rough idea of what to do with it?
The desludging portion has already gone through a public procurement process, and we are planning to go through another public procurement process for the aeration diffusers.
Okay.
Councilor Buckingham.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just gotta ask my own morbid curiosity. We haven't done these since 1990. We're cleaning up somebody else's mess here. Has this ever been on the agenda before? Why, how can it possibly be that they went for 27 years? That's way over exceeding its life, isn't it?
Yeah, typically lagoon processes are desludged between 10 to 15 years, but we haven't done our lagoons since back in 1996.
So we've doubled the shelf life of this project already, pretty much.
That's correct.
I was just curious if it was ever brought up in the past in that 15 to 20 year range, not 25 to 27.
And this is something that we are hoping to incorporate going forward, because this is essentially a maintenance issue. It has to be done. Systems like ours will have to desludge every so often. And we're hoping to incorporate that so that we can build reserves so that 15 years down the road, we have the funds available to do this specific type of work.
Because generally on the surface of this, if and when we can secure everything, get this new wastewater treatment plant up and running, these current ponds are still incorporated into that. And depending on the type of technology we put into the new one, in 15 to 20 years, we're going to be doing this again regardless, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
One of the reasons it's been this delayed is the status of the wastewater treatment plant. So that's been ongoing for 5, 6, 7 years, and we've been wanting to see some direction on where that's going before we invest in it. That's something we took on early in 2017 was to look at desludging that as part of this process. So that's kind of why it's been put off longer than it maybe should have.
But in the end, we've got great value out of that system, way more than we ever could have imagined.
Councilor Thorson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just to be clear, if the Alberta regulations that says that land use or land apply is okay, but Saskatchewan is not, so that's why we're going with an Alberta option. My question is, are we able to sell this? Is this the type of product we get paid for, or we're just hoping someone takes it off our hands?
So the reason why we are able to put the sludge in Alberta is because it doesn't require any stabilization stuff. Saskatchewan requires us to either heat the sludge, dry it, so additional steps to make it suitable for land application in Saskatchewan. In Alberta, you take the sludge out, you apply it into land as long as you do the balances for nitrogen, for phosphate, and all of that. In terms of whether we can sell this product, if we do some additional processing, there is potential to do that. There are some technologies that are available to do that. But at this point, our only concern is to get the lagoons working properly and optimize them and prepare it for construction of the new wastewater treatment plant.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions before I ask Councilor Fagin? Councilor Fagin?
No, I think everything's been answered for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Moving on to agenda item 5.4, downtown area development development. That's the manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. We'll ask Sam from Long Range Planning to come forward.
Good afternoon, Sam.
Good afternoon, everyone. Members of Council. The intent of this is actually to provide an update to the committee on the DART RFP. You still remember my first stint in council, that was 2016 when I came with the old one. That was the old RFP, which was then due for this. Now, council was just elected at that time, and council decided there was different priority at that time. Now I'm back. But the background to this is, since 1988, we haven't had any downtown area development. That's about 30 years ago. Now, the intent of this is, as we pull this one together, is the desire to develop the downtown Lloydminster into an attractive, sustainable place for all demographics by making it more exciting, vibrant, legible, pedestrian-friendly, and a 24/7 destination. And I know, Councillor Buckingham, I know you were asking about is this just the inspector who came on in about this being a destination, and I think one thing we want to market ourselves as is make Lloydminster a destination. And to actually make that attraction come through, we have to really focus on the downtown. So these, we have gone ahead, 150,000 was approved in the 2018 budget for these, and we have gone ahead, we have gone ahead and put together the RFP. The RFP, we're still in the process. We're going to be coming back to council, I think, next Monday to just present who the successful proponent is. But where we are right now, we put out the application on February the 12th, and The closing was March 23rd. We received 10 applications, and in our RFP we had indicated some conditions that each of the proponents had to abide by, and we had 6 of them did not meet those conditions. So those ones were eliminated easily. Then we had 4 of the proponents that moved on to the evaluation process. So we had evaluated the proposals and taking a look at them. Then we have 3 of them, as we stated in the RFP, will be invited for interview. That interview process we actually went through that about a week and a half ago, and now we have. We are going through the process of doing some reference checks because we asked them to give us some references. Those references, we're checking them, and that should be completed before we come back to council just to make that presentation. So what we intend to accomplish through this is that GPC, although the committee accept this one as information, that's an update information on the RFP process for the downtown area development plan.
Thank you, Senator. Excuse me, questions, Council? Comments? Certainly, Council.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. I'm glad to see this is going forward, and I was wondering where the references were as I was looking at the evaluation criteria, and so I'm pleased to hear that that'll be added in. I'm not sure which category you'll add it into relative to the 6 areas that you have noted in there, but I was pleased to see that. Again, just the add, I see you have people that have used it 8 to 80 years of age, and I'm not sure why you stopped at 80 or 8. Certainly we want to make sure that all people within our community are able to participate and see the downtown as a place that is a destination. And based on my attendance and involvement with Pioneer House and Pioneer Lodge, certainly I would again find not just participants, but even stakeholders. I'm wondering, because we certainly have the Legacy Center, which is down here, and I'd be interested in seeing how they fit in and see their place within our larger community here as well.
Thank you, Councilor Badger. Like I said in my presentation, this is for all demographics. It's not just for the toddlers or for those who are younger, but more so, even those the vibrant and the really energetic listening component of the city. We want them to be there. This is where you draw the energy from, at least for any city. That's going to be part of the focus of this as we move into when we actually do award this contract, and then we have the consultant in-house. That's going to be a conversation between the consultant, us, and council, just to define exactly where this, how the move ahead with this.
Thank you, Worship. Thanks, Sam. I think you referenced it in there with the new council that got elected and defeated the proposal for this right off the bat when we first got in. I can speak to the education piece of this for myself. I think it's worth noting that this isn't just another study that's been going to be done on the downtown, because we've been there, done that. If somebody came to Lloydminster today and said, we want to develop this downtown, we don't have the answer to say, yes, this is the vision for our downtown, this is what we want to allow down here. Is this big commercial, is it commercial residential? I've been asked about this in public lots of times, and now I have a more educated answer to say, look, this is going to give us a framework for long term. This isn't about putting up new downtown street lights and redoing cobblestone sidewalks necessarily. This is about all of it and about the long term. So I can say that I truly understand this a lot better now than I did when we first were elected to council. So I just wanted to bring up the fact that it's a long-term thing. And I don't think a lot of people really look into it and realize that. I didn't. I do now.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other comments? Councilor Garrison.
This is really not important. I think it was a 6-1 vote, just so you guys know.
Well, thank you, Councilor. You've got a good memory, Councilor Parsons, so I'm not going to dispute that. Anyone else have any other comments?
I guess, I was just looking at the stakeholders in there, and I'm wondering what role developers play in our community around some of these pieces that are in there. I guess certainly as developers, again, often are going to be the source of some of the investment income and the initiatives I think that that group will have relative to spending the money investing within the community as well. So as a consideration, I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there. Certainly I know that there are groups of people that meet that are investors and brainstorm and have ideas about stuff, and quite honestly they have different connections than we do at the table here. So if there's an opportunity for some of those folks in some way to be brought into this process, I think, there's might be some potential for us as well. We can go down a pathway and see what we think is a good vision. On the other hand, developers might have an idea about, well, you know what, people are looking for some, people with money are looking to do X, Y, and Z as well, so there might be some influence around it as well. I certainly don't want to just build a pathway where developers say, this is what we want to do, but I think they're a player, and at some point in time, we're going to ask them to come in and build an apartment, or build a restaurant, or do this, so there needs to be, I think, it's sort of a bit of some opportunity for them to have input on it. So.
Thanks. And just to buttress your point in regards to that, all developers are listed as part of our stakeholders at least in this one. And not only just developers, but even businesses within the city, because all of them, we just believe that this is not a job for council to do. It's actually for the public to actually get engaged in it and get it done. What council is trying to do is actually to provide a framework. And through that framework, the implementation goes on. But you have to have that, like Councilor Buckingham said, you have to have a vision first. And that's what council is trying to cast, at least for the downtown. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Baker.
Thank you, Richard. Just a question. Somewhere in the proposal, and somewhere along the way, we'll be talking to the stakeholders. And the stakeholders, in my mind, are the people that own the buildings. A lot of those buildings are rented. And I think you have to talk to the building owners, because ultimately those are the people that are going to spend the money if they're going to do some upgrades and that kind of stuff. Whereas the people renting can have a lot of great ideas, but they might be there for 6 months or they might be there for 6 years. But I think it's important that the actual building owners are involved in somewhere in the process. So that's all I had. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you, Councilor Baker. I know in an RFP, actually, we noted that in an RFP, just to be sure. I just want to run through the list of stakeholders, as we mentioned here. One, the city council is a major stakeholder. City departments, we talk about the Law National Business Improvement District, which has now, I believe, been dissolved, which is and then downtown business owners, like you're saying. We have downtown business building owners. Then we have downtown non-profit organizations, Lloydminster Native Friendship Center, Lloydminster Métis Housing Corporation, Healthcare, Railway, CN and CP, because we are going across the rail this time, just to bring them in, and because we want that to be part of what we call the larger downtown, just to ensure that that energy is captured, at least in the new downtown plan. Then we have the Chamber of Commerce as a major stakeholder. We have residents, and we come to the A to E. Sorry, thank you very much. It's actually
just getting started. Just getting started.
No, the general public and public library. So all of them, we want to capture everybody in this. Then beyond the stakeholders, then we have partners. Partners are those who are not going to. We are not expecting them to invest really, but then because they can actually help us at least with building this vision together and making sure that this thing gets implemented. That includes school boards, Lakeland College, immigrant services or immigration services, local food advocates, emergency and protective services, all of those services that will be required in this area. All of them, they are going to be partners, not really stakeholders, but again to invited and engaged. One thing about this project is going to be, I would say, profusely based on heavy public engagement, making sure that stakeholders and partners and the public are fully engaged, so that now when the plan is developed, they have the buy-in and they own that plan. That means the public is going to own the plan, and then implementation becomes a lot easier.
Yes, Your Worship. My point is, the owners are the guy with the checkbook, and they're the ones that make the decisions ultimately. And in the past, there has been studies done in the city, lots of studies, believe me. And when you don't have the right people at the table, I can say yes, 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 but if I don't own the building, or I don't own this, I don't have too much to say other than I'd like to see it. So that's the only reason I bring down the school board and Lakeland College, they're going to have input, but they're not going to build the downtown.
That's why we call them partners.
It's going to be the city and taxpayers that are going to build the downtown along with the building owners. That's why I bring it up.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councilor Monroe.
So I just want to say the RFP looks really good, and obviously I'm passionate about the downtown and revitalizing our downtown. I think this is really going to sustain the vitality of our community. And for me, actually, I think that everybody is a stakeholder, whether you own the building or don't own the building. For me, everybody's input really does matter in this RFP, just because in the dark, the business owners want to know what's going to attract you to their business, right? They're not just going to do what's best for them and their building, they want you to come there. So they do want to know what the residents have to say, what the people that are going to shop downtown are going to say. They want to know what the people that live downtown, they want to know their input in order to invest in what's going to make their business more attractive to the general public. So I think everything in this looks really good, and I'm really excited to see what we have for people that put in proposals. So.
Thanks, Councilor Monroe. And we did appreciate your participation in the BID before.
Turn to Councilor Fagnan. Any questions or comments, Councilor?
Forget to take this one up.
He'll wake him up.
Councilor Fagnan, are you still with us?
Hello?
Hello there.
Hello there. So was there anything you wanted to add or questions you wanted to raise, Councilor?
Just a comment here. Certainly, when this came to council back in 2016, it was a little premature there, I believe, for our first or second meeting, and I'm glad to see that this is moving forward. I mean, there's been a number of studies done downtown over the years, and I think you'll find that with most municipalities, the key is to have people living downtown and clean downtown. We need people to live down there in order to make this happen. And I think once one block is built, that will spawn more blocks to come. So looking forward to the future with it. So I think they've done a good job. There's a lot of strong stakeholders there, and we're probably sitting with you. And yeah, I agree with Michael. You got to get it's 8 steps, and that's just you're kind of just half time in that way. So. No, that's just that comment.
Thank you, Councilor. Well, thank you very much, Sam. Much appreciated the report, and we'll look forward to next week seeing where we're at with the contracts to be offered.
All right, yes.
Thank you. Before we move on to 6.1, I was wondering if someone would recommend a short break.
Chair, I'll make a motion. We have a short recess.
Thank you, Councilor. Seconder? Councilor Monroe, all in favor? So we'll take a 5-minute break. Councilor Fagnan, how do you vote?
I'm in favor.
Thank you. Larry.
2 days.
He's on it.
That was my assessment, no matter what, because I wasn't making a decision today.
Doesn't matter.
Don't you think that's a better idea?
We had
Carried. Sorry, Councillor Fagnan.
9 days.
Hello.
Hello, Councillor Fagnan.
Probably hung out for the 5-minute break.
He's a minute guy. Continue.
Okay. Oh, well. Okay, consider it carried. And hopefully we'll get Councillor Fagnan back.
He's on Phoenix time.
He's on Phoenix time. All right. Moving on to item number 6 on the agenda. Governance and priority matters. City Manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. We'll ask Daniel Hobson from the Office of the City Clerk to come forward.
Good afternoon, Daniel.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Your Worship. Good afternoon, Council. So currently, as you're aware, there is no policy to guide basically council recognition to the public in the form of proclamations or correspondence. So the policy presented to you today is a draft proclamation and correspondence for members of council policy. It's there to provide guidance, and most of our research has shown that with proclamations, there's an all or nothing approach largely to it throughout other communities. Either they make all of them or they make none. So this is a very middle of the road policy, and something that's maybe a little newer out there. So if there's any questions or comments, we'd be happy to hear them.
Well, I'll start because I actually asked Legislative Services to take a look at this because I some days get inundated by numerous requests for proclamations from organizations within our city, not in our city, nonprofit organizations within our city, not within our city, from associations across the world almost, if I can be that blunt. And I certainly look to the City Clerk and Legislative Services team to do some look at where we were at potentially. And certainly, as Dan indicated, there are some communities in our province, or both provinces, that are no proclamations. Some accept all proclamations. And the legislative team came back with this recommendation. So I certainly would ask council to give it some consideration. Basically what we're saying is that if we support an organization either financially or in kind from that perspective, then we fall into some of the national observances from the country, because there's certainly, as the attachment shows, a lot of designated days that I wasn't even aware of. Certainly we celebrate basically 11 holidays or 10 holiday days, but there are certainly numerous other items covered by the Government of Canada in their recommendations. So that was where some of that food for thought came from. Councillor Torson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I dealt with this in my short time as Deputy Mayor as well, so the first would just be my comment that the one proclamation I had to do 2 on the same day to declare it a week for one group, and also that same week was a week for another group. So it just seemed like a really awkward thing that we were declaring a week for 2 groups in the same week. So which one did the week belong to according to the City of Lloydminster? I don't know, there's a little confusion there, and I think it would be good if we did clean this up a little, and I hope this policy helps us to do that. One of my questions is around just kind of the standard of whether or not we provide financial benefit or gifts in kind to them. So my question is, are we going to make it a standard, and I guess it's our choice, but are we saying that if we supported them once, so we wrote them a check 3 years ago, are they still financially supported by the city if it was for like a capital type item, or is it continued support through their operations? Is making them exempt from paying property taxes considered financial support? Those are questions that I had when I read this, just to say, okay, what does this mean? Does it have to be through FCSS that we provided a grant to say whether or not they're one of the organizations that meet the standard on that side? So I guess it left me with a lot more questions to come, but those were the major ones, was just along the lines of what's the standard of financial support that we're using as far as what makes them one of the groups that can have a proclamation.
Dan, I'll leave it to you or to the city.
No, that's a great question, Councillor. As it is now, it is very broad in that sense, and that was done for a reason. So if there is, if council and the committee would like to pick one of those many options that you presented, we can certainly write that in. My interpretation right now, and I believe the team from legislative services would be if it'd be an ongoing financial support. So 3 years ago, that to me wouldn't check the box. But property tax exemptions, that would, to me, fall under a gift in kind. I think we go on that.
Any comments, Nicholas? Anyone add to that?
No, those are great comments, Councilor. We'll look out. As Daniel said, there's either an all-in or an all-out. So yeah, tried to chart the middle ground with this, and those are great comments, and we'll take that back and sort of have a discussion on it and bring something forward.
Councilor Baker.
Well, I too, like you and the rest of you, have been through this one. First of all, I don't think dollars should have anything to do with it. You're not buying your spot at City Council. If it's worth doing, we should do it. But I think these out-of-town ones and from all over the place, organizations we don't know anything about, we've had them recently just show up as a proclamation. And I don't know how you're going to solve it. First of all, I'm going to say that. But I sure don't believe that we start doing proclamations all over the country and for everybody, and there shouldn't be a dollar or amount or anything to do whether you have a proclamation or not, for sure. I just don't believe that it's like you're trying to buy their vote, as the saying goes. So, thank you.
Appreciate that, Councillor, and I'll use the example that, Dan, if you want to speak to this, there's a couple examples of various items that we support, such as Colonial Days. One of the challenges we had to sign Colonial Days, because we do not actually make Colonial Days happen, yet we support Colonial Days. So that was one of those examples. There's certain items that the city supports, and financially, by holding the pancake breakfast, one would say we support. So that's where I think some of the terminology came from. And again, we can send it certainly back to legislative services to try and draft that. So I appreciate what you're saying from that perspective. We did some discussing about this, because this is one of the examples. Colonial Days is a community event supported by the city, but in essence, we don't really host it other than it happens on the streets and the avenues of the city for the parade. The pancake breakfast that we hold in conjunction with Colonial Days. It's certainly just a matter of proclaiming Colonial Days. So that's one of the challenges around that. So I don't have the answer either, because I know what you're saying. You're right, this is some slippery ground that we're on, and we try to look at something, and that's why I appreciate legislative services taking a kick at the cat the first time here to come forward with something. It may not be perfect, and maybe we do go one way or the other, but I think we need some direction is what I'm looking for, and that's what the legislative services brought forward. Councilor Batchak.
I appreciate the comments that Councilor Baker making around the financial part, and I guess when I think about who controls a non-for-profit designation, it's not us, it's COPTER. So all we're doing is honoring that process so you don't pay taxes. So that designation is entirely out of our sort of regulatory requirements, other than we really act on what the recommendations are. So I'm not sure that I would see that as being, other than the fact that they don't have to pay taxes to us, but that criterion is set externally to us. If anything, I guess, if we're thinking about limiting the number of days so we have fewer challenges around, I guess they heard here, there's 2 in a week, then I'm not sure. I guess as I look at national designations, and certainly those, in my mind, if we limited it to that list or whatever, in particular even the Exhibition Association, that would be slimming it down and bringing it down to as little as possible. I guess under these changes, what are some of the organizations that would no longer be able to meet that requirement? Because if we haven't weaned anybody out, then what was the point, right? So who would we filter out in this process?
Well, there'd be a number of organizations. We'd have to come back with a full list.
That's kind of
certainly be some community organizations, some of the religious organizations that have asked us to proclaim various things. So there's certainly, it narrows the field, but I don't have an exact number. City Clerk?
We can get that list and sort of go from historically who's asked us, and we can put that list together and then bring it forward to council and let council see who would be affected.
If I could just add, I think the other thing is that I don't see this as my top 10 priorities of things we have to do on, so I'm not suggesting there's a big rush and a panic to get it back to our next meeting. But I don't know, perhaps, maybe that's not, opinion's not shared with everybody else, but I just,
I guess if I can speak to that, I think I'm looking for some direction, because it usually lands on my desk in our office. And I think that from that perspective, if council would be willing to see this come back with some revision and deal with it, we would at least start a process. As we've talked about, we've chosen some middle ground. There's room to move, potentially, if that's what this council feels. And I'm looking for some direction from my fellow councillors representing the city as the mayor as to what message we want to convey. And I want to make sure that we have as many, if it's the bulk of the council that supports, we go forward after putting it to a vote once we have a policy that we can look at. Councillor Buckingham, do you have a comment?
Thank you, Worship. There's a question under 5.5. Council may, in its discretion by resolution, decline a request for proclamation. How are they being vetted before they get to that point? How do we know that we're going to either have to bring this up or decline it? Who makes that call?
So no, great question, and a point I wanted to bring up also further to Councillor Danchuk's point. So this policy is also proposing a major difference, and that is that there's an application process for proclamations, and the deadline set there is the first Monday in October. So what the aim of that is, one, it should probably rule out some international or national organizations that aren't really too involved in the community. They wouldn't know our city council procedures for getting a proclamation. So if they don't meet the deadline, then it's an easy no, you don't meet the deadline, so it would come forward to council, and hopefully that'll grasp some of the bigger ones. With the vetting process through there, it's basically stipulated in 5.4 if there's multiples. So if you make an application, we won't be vetting it. It'll come forward as a list. Unless, like I said, there's multiples there, which the policy would stipulate. And then that can come through the council for decision, and it can be as a collective, or we can go to the individual of the council list.
Your Worship, I probably made an error when I said from all over the country. National things like, say, the Wounded Warrior or the Canadian Legion. I don't mean to eliminate those national organizations, but I'm just talking out of blue comes Joe's whatever.
Well, you know, I have a strong commitment to the National Pipefitters Association, but when they tell me it's National Plumbers Week, from that perspective, that was one example that came forward.
Yeah.
I appreciate the work that people do, but there's a point from that perspective, and I think that's what, like I say, that's what fostered this discussion to legislative services to bring forward.
I didn't mean to disrespect anybody from a national perspective, you know. We can have the same conversation about flags that have staff, you know.
And we will be shortly. So I think that if Councillor Fagin, were you able to join us again?
National Days of Service.
text.
He was disconnected.
There we go. We better try and see if we can bring him back.
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Torson, continue.
Thank you. No, I just had good? Yeah, I just had another kind of comment or question. One of the things I'd really like to see from this list, because I'm not sure how it'll fit into it, is you have some pretty sizable service clubs in the community, and I don't want to see the hard work they do get discounted in any way, whether that's the Lions or whatever the group is. So not every one of them would be a property owner necessarily. Not everyone necessarily receives an FCSS grant. But those are like the local kind of groups that are doing a lot of the volunteer work in the community. So even if it ends up being they all get the same week and that's volunteer week, maybe that's fine. Okay. But just so that we're conscious of a lot of the local groups that are really helping out with local issues.
Okay.
Any luck there, Councillor Dychak? Okay. All right, I think we've been, any other council members have any other comments? I think we've given administration a little bit to work with, and we'll look forward to them coming back. And, oh my gosh, we right now. He's been sidetracked. So. All right, thanks very much for your time. Thank you very much on that one, Dan, but I don't think you need to go very far, because moving on to 6.2, I'll turn it back to Dan, and we'll carry on with 6.2.
Great. So as it was noted, similar situation with flags and banners is we don't have a policy there to guide the city administration or council on what flags will fly, when we'll fly them, and any of the half-masting protocols, as well as when we're referring to the banner, we're largely referring to the events banner that goes downtown across Highway 17 there. So this policy tries to align as best it can with the policy we just saw before, and largely if the city is supporting the organization or cause, or the event is at some of our larger event facilities or partner organizations that host events, we would fly that banner. From a flag perspective there, we've outlined which flags we are going to fly. There is some leeway for council to designate a different flag if need be, and half-masting too as well outside of the policy there was set.
Councillor Baker and Councillor.
Thank you, Worship. A good example of this, and it's the half-staff one, the part I really would like to ask about, because I can't remember. At one time, and I'm sure there is, the federal government and provinces probably had a certain rule they followed for half-staff, whether it was an MP or some head of state, I forget who those people were. But I caution you, keep something local. An example is the Humboldt Broncos. You know, make sure you have some ability to do what you want to do locally. And we don't know what's going to happen. But there's one example that just happened. And I'm so happy that our administration did what they did that day.
And I believe that the flexibility is in there in the policy for council to direct administration to fly half-mast air.
I just don't know how it works anymore. I used to know. But you know.
Councillor Buckingham, followed up by Councillor Torres.
Thank you, Worship. I was a little concerned under 5.1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We're being real specific on what flags can be flown there. I think we're missing the RCMP flag on that list if we're going to be specific, because the RCMP detachment is a city-owned property and it's still flying an RCMP flag. Unless I missed it somewhere, I was concerned about that, the fact that wasn't there as one of the places we're flying over all city buildings. That's missing. And occasionally fire departments, we have our own flag for ours and it flies in our fire hall. So should the city fire department want to have that up there? But the RCMP one was the one that is currently flying in the city that's not listed.
And I can speak to the RCMP flag. So the RCMP flagpoles, while it is a city building, is considered an RCMP flagpoles, and they actually control when the flags go up and down through their protocols.
I hope that answers your question. Councillor Torres.
Thank you, Your Worship. My one question was, it's very much in line with what Councillor Baker said, is I'm just wondering in 6.1.7 if we can put or other or other tragedy of local, provincial, or national significance, and that kind of gives you the flexibility so that if like a Humboldt Broncos type thing happens, that it is kind of more clear in there, because I didn't see anywhere other than that kind of said, you know, if it meets a certain significance, then it could happen. So maybe I read it wrong.
We can absolutely do that. 6.1 just itself there, so flags flown at city properties and village shall be lowered to half-mast position as directed by city council. So, but we can put 6.1.7 in there and further clarify that for you, absolutely.
I think that would provide a little bit more clarity to that, and certainly still a discretionary factor, but add that to a particular item as clarity. Any other comments? Councillor Dutch?
Yes, thank you. I was just thinking of the banners being flown, and I see other events that could be hosted out of the buildings, and I'm wondering, what's the filter around that. So if you're hosting, let's say, Holy Rosary is hosting, 2A or 3A volleyball championships or basketball championships, would they be allowed to, fly a banner if something like that was made available, or the comp was doing 3A or 4A provincial championships? What would prohibit them, I guess? And I don't know that they would fly a banner, but I was just trying to, because we've actually identified the buildings, and so I'm not sure what Lakeland College events would have banners, but I thought it might be more, I guess, affiliated with nationals or provincial events, sporting events.
So just to be clear, we're just regulating the one banner on Highway 17. We wouldn't be specifying Lakeland College or.
But it said the event is taking place. So at those places.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm saying is that if the event takes place at somewhere else, you've now limited by that comment, right?
Yeah.
So why is Lakeland College in there, right?
I see what the councillor is saying is, do we need to possibly look at national or provincial events?
So what if you have a national, stuff running at Service Sports Center is great because it's our own event, right? Our own building.
Yeah, summer games.
Yeah, the summer games. So we might need to tweak that to include national and provincial events from that perspective that are being hosted by the city. And that could be broad spectrum from national dance, if there was a dancing competition at Victory, right through, so that perspective story.
So it's minor, but I don't,
That's a good catch, because anything else that anyone else wishes to comment on?
It's not going to work.
It is, thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. Certainly appreciate having the opportunity to have some input from the legislative services team to help guide me through some of my days. Moving on to 6.3, draft substance. City manager to the city chief of staff.
Yeah, well, thank you, Your Worship. We'll ask John Stevens to come forward, please.
Thank you. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Your Worship. So, Council has been provided a draft substance use policy, and the draft substance use policy is to replace the existing drug and alcohol policy that currently exists. We are looking at some improvements to the current policy, the inclusion of reasonable suspicion testing, accommodation and disclosure of our employees that work for the City of Lloyd. So we are looking for some direction from the committee to either bring the draft substance policy to council or to direct administration to make changes to the substance use policy.
Councillor Buckingham.
Thank you, Richard. Thanks, John. Can you give us a high-level overview of the changes? There must be some specific things that stand out to you from our current policy to this one.
Yeah, so some of the changes that are in place really does talk about the accommodation aspect. So the City of Lloyd does have a duty to accommodate, as well as reasonable suspicion testing. So it's something that has not been done in the past. So if any employees are coming that are unfit for duty, we haven't had a process in place to be able to look at reasonable suspicion testing, providing assessments so that we can make that referral. So this would really help to improve the health and safety that currently exists, because we can then have a process to remove any employees that may be unfit for duty.
And I suspect cannabis duty has
absolutely.
Forefront.
So we have referenced the Cannabis Act as well as the Criminal Code of Canada. So any changes that do come will still be included in the policy. Whether cannabis is illegal or recreational illegal, it shouldn't affect the policy in any way.
Councillor Morrison.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think overall it looks pretty good from everything that I've seen, and actually in my other life I've seen very similar policies, because I think most organizations have sophistication of putting these kind of things in right now. One of the things that I've seen in other policies, though, is actually having some level of thresholds, because unless there's a zero tolerance amount of threshold, there's a certain amount of nanograms per something or another, which I don't understand, but nanograms per something blood testy things that I sound really smart right now, but there's some threshold that you can't be over, otherwise it's considered a fail or not a fail, and there's some that can be in your system in which it's not a fail, and I think there needs to be some leeway when recreational use of some types of drugs is legal. So I'm just wondering, is that a different document, or will that be part of this same document, or are we not touching thresholds at all?
Well, with the reference to the Criminal Code of Canada, we're looking at impairment, not at certain levels. So if it's considered to be an impairment, then it's in breach of the policy.
So by definition. Okay, perfect. So then that means we don't have to change the threshold. If they change it within the criminal code, then it's a living kind of document that changes within those standards.
Yeah, that's right. It will be updated.
Fair enough.
Any other questions or comments? Thanks, Peter.
The zero tolerance thing, and this is where, you know where I stand on this, we're way ahead of ourselves on this whole thing, because you heard the police chief today, what he's saying, we have no answers. You heard it said today. But in terms of zero tolerance, are they not saying provincially or federally, zero tolerance if you're driving? Using the word zero tolerance? Have I heard that for driving a vehicle?
I believe that they're going for zero tolerance of driving, but there's always going to be a level of nanogram percentage per blood alcohol.
That's a new one.
They're going to have to go
My
for.
learned friend here.
That's actually
nanogram.
He is correct in that.
Yeah. I guess if it says, if the provincial law is saying zero tolerance, what does that mean then based on, does it mean anything?
So if the Criminal Code of Canada referenced zero tolerance, then our policy would also hold that same standard. And if their reference standard was different, then ours would automatically encompass that.
Are we getting into, though, if it's legal, like the human rights kind of thing? If it's legal and someone consumes it outside of a certain amount of time, there still is going to be residual in their blood system, right? So
yeah, there may be residual in their system, and when it comes to the legality of the substance, it doesn't apply to this policy. We're writing it for unfit for duty, which is impairment.
Right.
And so if impairment is defined at a certain level, we're not worrying about human rights in this case.
well, impairment mustn't be zero tolerance.
Okay.
So
I would believe.
certainly
It must be like you said.
there's going to likely be a threshold, whatever
Right.
that may be. And I think that to ensure the safety of each and every employee, as well as each and every resident in the city, the people working for the city, that's what some direction that way.
Should there be something in here regarding medical use? Because there are people that are going to be prescribed it for a medical reason, correct?
Yes, so we do include prescription drugs in the policy. And so prescription use, we start looking at disclosure, and then we look at accommodation.
Okay.
Councillor, Councillor.
Sorry.
If I read this correctly, it's zero tolerance for impairment, not zero tolerance to have something left over in your system, right? So I think we're okay, but that's just how I read it.
I believe that's how they'd be interpreting it from a safety perspective.
Yes, you bet.
Okay. Councillor Dorson.
I may be asking the same question over again, but I know there's such a thing as a safety sensitive position. So if you guys have a guy who's operating a grader versus someone who works in recreation or something like that, just working at the gym, is there, the standard is the same?
Yeah, we did have safety-sensitive positions identified, and we did remove it from the policy. We wanted to treat all members of administration the same when it came to this. When they're coming to work, we would prefer everyone to be fit for duty, regardless as to the role they play.
Oh, so that's actually a higher standard?
Yes, it is.
Because normally when they talk about safety-sensitive position, you absolutely need the zero tolerance of impairment to be true. But now we're saying that because they're dealing with the public, because they're members of the staff of the city of Lloydminster, all of them have to be held to the high standard.
Yeah, that's right. The policies are applied across the board.
Thank you. I like that.
I do too. Everybody's on the same playing field, including city council. Any other comments or questions? Well, thank you, John. I think well done. I think from what I'm hearing and seeing, it's ready to come forward to the city council.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 6.4, the SDA meetings.
Thank you, Your Worship. For planning and development, William Shanks will come forward to present this.
Thank you, Your Worship and committee members. The Municipal Government Act has been undergoing some changes over the last 2 years, 2-year period. There are a number of changes that are required to land use bylaws as well as certain bylaws such as the SDAB bylaw, and that is a subdivision and development appeal board bylaw. We have a draft bylaw that's going that we would like to bring forward to the next council meeting that would be amended, an amended bylaw of the previous bylaw. Now this would be to meet with section, to be in conformance with section 627.3 of the new Municipal Government Act, which states that the Subdivision and Development Appeal Board must not have more than one council member as a member. Our bylaw currently has, and that bylaw is bylaw 24-2016, is currently written up with having a board composition of 2 members of council and 3 public members. I do wish to note that the appointment of the board has expired, and that we'll be looking at having council appoint board members as well. Now, as part of this, a clerk would have to be appointed as part of the board as well. And as you can see with the options here, we are looking at having the SDAB bylaw, the draft bylaw in your package there, brought to the April 30th council meeting for all 3 readings. And we'd be looking at providing as well a draft, an RFD for appointment of board members. So with that, we would like to begin our advertising for board members as well, so that we have members that we could bring forward to council for consideration at the next meeting, the April 30th meeting. Certainly for the council meeting, if we cannot get all 3 readings at that meeting, we could possibly look at getting first reading on the 30th and having second and third readings on the 14th of May. And this would involve bringing forward our draft bylaw to comply with the newly amended MGA. And I'm certainly open for questions if anyone has any.
I can start with, what does this charter speak to on the SDA?
So the charter says we follow Part 17 of the NDA, and 627 is part of Part 17, which means that currently with the changes to the MGA, we are non-compliant with our bylaw. So 627 says that council must create a bylaw to appoint members.
Thank you for that. I was going to say that, but I'm glad that our city clerk has said that so eloquently.
He does do it very well. He's got that one under his belt. All right. Wayne, thank you very much for bringing this forward. One area that we do try as this council to ensure for public input on many different things is ensuring 2 meetings if we can for the 3-meeting process. So my personal view is that I realize we're out of sync to the MGA, but I think if we could, certainly my first feeling would be to bring it back for the 30th for the first reading, give us a little time to digest this and ensure, because I know I believe we had a standing SDAB meeting or board from the information I received, but when was the last time the SDAB had been called on to meet? you have any information that you can share on that one?
According to our records, the last time that they had met was in 2015.
Okay, so that was, so it hadn't occurred while this council, so that board had been in place, members have, I believe, indicated they might be interested, other members have said they're not interested. That's the information I received.
That's correct.
Councilor Torres.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I just wanted to echo what Mayor Albers was saying. 3 readings in 1 meeting to me is contrary to the legislative process that we've all agreed upon in this country, so we have to do it in 2 meetings if possible. The other thing I wanted to ask was, this is only on the Alberta side, because we would have to follow whatever the planning is on the Saskatchewan side, and that would be a separate board.
Thank you, Councillor Torreson. Actually, we would be using the same board to hear the Saskatchewan appeals, and there has been an amendment that has been made to the draft bylaw, giving the appeal board the right to certainly hear appeals on whether it's Saskatchewan side of the city or the Alberta side. And we have made contact as well with the Community Planning Division on Saskatchewan as far as if we get an appeal, subdivision appeal, whether that could go to their Saskatchewan Municipal Board. And the answer that we've received is that it needs to go to our local appeal board, which is why we've established a subdivision development appeal board that will hear all appeals, whether it be subdivision or development appeals.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think that's important, especially if you're looking for volunteers to not have to get 2 separate groups set up and trained to be able to do this kind of thing. The other question I had was just around having the clerk. So is the clerk a voting member of that board, or mainly there from an administrative point of view?
The clerk is there from an administrative standpoint, and there are, according to the Act, there are certain requirements of board members, but and appointing board members, and one of them would be that they cannot be a city employee. However, the city clerk is not actually a board member, but rather an administrative clerk of the board.
Perfect. Thank you. It's a good presentation. Thank you very much.
If I could just make one other point, training would be required, mandatory training of the board members as well. Now, if they had previous training, if we say previous board members were reappointed, I would assume they had training before, prior to doing appeals. I'm not quite sure at this point if that training would have to be, if it would have to be recertification. I would assume that it would have to be. And we could certainly look into training requirements for appeal board members.
I'd like just take a stab at that, Wayne, after completing the assessment review board training. That is good for 3 years. You go back, I believe, for a 1-day refresher once you complete the 4-day course of that. Sets. So I'm not sure where the SDAB is, but through the Municipal Government Board in Edmonton, we have a series of training classes available. They're run throughout the province, throughout the year. So I think that we'd have to do some investigation from that perspective.
And actually, the city clerk had just whispered to me, could be one day. Actually, I've heard that as well, that it could be as little as 1 day now. Whether that's changed under the new requirements, I'm not quite sure. That's something that we could look into to confirm that.
Well, hopefully we'll have some, you can bring out just an idea, because it's certainly going to be a cost that will be incurred by the council to bring our SDAB board up to spec as to meet the regulations. And because we believe there's a required number of members on the SDAB minimum that would have to be met. So if you could bring that back, that would be greatly appreciated after, if it's not the first reading, but when we open it up, because there'll be some discussion that people will want to know what that's going to cost as well.
I guess the question arises, Your Worship, whether a public hearing would be part of that, and perhaps I could look to the city clerk in a situation like this. If we wait for second and third reading to a subsequent meeting, would a public hearing be something we'd be looking at?
I think that we'd have to research that. My instinct says no, but I'd like to research it.
You make so.
Sorry about that. My first thought is no, but I'd like to take a look at it and then confirm, because it does deal with land development of Part 17 and maybe a special requirement.
Okay. Sounds good. Any other questions or comments before we Okay, thank you very much, Wayne. We'll look forward to seeing it then for the first reading, hopefully next week.
Thank you, Your Worship, and the committee members. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, back to the agenda. I do not see anything else other than 6-4, so I'll look for inquiries from the media.
Thank you, Your Worship. At this time, we have a media request for yourself, Mayor Albers, as well as Councillors Buckingham, Dichuk, and Thorson.
I'll look to council for direction.
Motion for recess.
Thank you, Seconder. Motion, Councilman Rowe. All in favor? Carried.
Press 30 and turns.